Welcome back, everybody. Degenerates. We are back. This has been a crazy, busy week, but I am here today. Very special episode, very near and dear to me, for sure. We're here with my good friend, Marlon Lizama. How are you, dude?
Buenos dias. How's everyone doing?
How's everything going?
I'm excited to be here.
Man,
thank you for coming.
I appreciate that. I know it's an early morning. We still got the whole day ahead of us. Before we get into the nitty gritty, I got to do some housekeeping like always. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe in advance because I might forget towards the end of this conversation. We are completely 100% self-funded. I'm going to keep harping on that with you guys. So anything that you guys can do on your end that's completely free, liking, sharing, subscribing, talking about it, hating on it, I appreciate it in advance, right? Please keep up with our previous episodes. By the time this episode is out, the episode with Katias will be out. What a great conversation. Check that out. The episode with Miguel will be out, talking about the taco passport, taquerias. If you guys want to be involved, please watch that episode. Watch all our clips because that's going to be super, super, super important. We're really passionate about that and all its efforts. And then just keep track of all of the fun stuff that we're doing. And on that note, Marlon.
I am fun.
How are you? Do you prefer Marlon or Marley?
Marley, yeah.
It's more like colloquial.
Good. Yeah. Marley's good.
How you been, dude?
I am blessed, man. I am blessed. I'm growing up. I'm evolving.
I'm evolving. I feel the same. It's so crazy that you said that because you feel like my adult. Like in my frame of reference, whenever we were growing up, like, so for quick little bit of history, and I'll let you dive into your history specifically in a little bit. You and I know each other because we shared a lot of rooms together whenever I was growing up. So whenever I was 14 or 15, I became a dancer. That kind of took me into a whole other world of life, and it gave me a lot of perspective, and was essentially my first love. It was what got me into art in general. And I can get really poetic about it as a whole, but you were part of a group that at the time was really dominant, and then it really, in a lot of ways, you were one of the adults in my life at the time that really was emblematic of the kind of person that you could be that was like non-traditional. You have to be the sports guy in school, or you've got to be the this kind of a person. Very like not non-characteristically stereotypical. You're also Latino, also like shared passions and art driven. So in a lot of ways, you and all of your contemporaries were like big idols of mine. So whenever you say like you're growing up, I'm like, I feel the same way because I'm like, man, I feel like I'm growing up. I feel like there's a lot of things that I think about like older versions of myself, and it's crazy to hear you say that because to me, I always see you as like the adult in the room. You know what I mean? That's kind of crazy, right?
I like that old saying is we become the adults we needed when we were young.
Oh yeah.
You know, I love that saying because I feel like that. Like I feel like I have kids. I'm a dad, you know, and so I think of myself like all the things that we needed when we were 14. And I think me being older than you guys and making sure that I was a mentor, you know, and it was like my crew, like basically, yeah, you touched up on hip hop and like that power of we're creatives being a part of this subculture called breaking. But we literally became the support system for each other.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
And so like the older guys in my group showed me that same love that it was so easy for me to share with you guys because there was no other way. Like that's the way we knew how to just navigate through everything that was going on. Yeah,
man. And I think this isn't going to be a hip hop conversation, although it can be one day if we want to, but because we probably have a lot of insight, but that mentorship part is like really palpable for me. I have like vivid memories of like you, it probably footage somewhere actually, like of you on my side I'm doing one-on-ones, B-Boy City, Austin, and you're on like my side, like hyping me up, like on the one-on-ones or whatever, and like those kinds of memories are like really resonate with me in terms of kind of again like that support system, and I oftentimes forget about it. I'm in the here and now all the time. I'm kind of like absent-minded professor. I'll just start doing stuff and I'll just go on a rampage. My friends hate me for it because they're like, bro, you're never around. But like I think back and I get into like the details of certain memories, and I'm like, bro, like we really did have a generation of people before us that were like, nah, do this, nah, do that, nah, don't worry about that, like, nah, don't, you know. And that's important. That's important to people. Back to your point about we become the parents that we needed. I think that you probably already had that mentality even before you became a parent, to be honest, because for me, and I'll speak for myself, but there was a whole slew of us that were around the same age that, I mean, we really looked up to you guys a lot. So it was really great to be a fly on the wall in those moments. And then it's also like doubly great to sit down with you as adults and and be able to have this conversation that we're about to have about your ventures, your art, because that really is what the focus is going to be today. What's the history, dude? I mean, I know it peripherally, but I think you should go into like who you are, what happened, how we got here.
And just to touch on a little bit on that, is this, I think it's, you have two choices when you're young, right? You either become a good mentor, a good person and give back, or you just become this cool guy, you know? And I saw a lot of people become the cool guy. And I remember like, you know, they say never meet your heroes, you know, because they just end up letting you down. And I remember hearing that, and then meeting some heroes of mine that like really let me down, where I'm just like, dude, you're just a jerk, man. Like, you know, and I never wanted to be that. If you met me, and this is even the way I treat what I do now professionally, if you're only going to see me once, like what impact am I leaving with you? You know? And I think I somewhere that seed was planted in the back of my head, and I treated dance that way. Like in a battle, like, you know, when b-boys are battling, of course, all rules are out because I'm trying to destroy you. You know, and at that time it was even worse in the 90s because we had to pay rent, you know, but...
And there was less rules back then.
And it was like,
it's a lot less of what it is now, where it's like people have to like corporate sponsors. And shit like that,
So, but also like you had to support each other. You had to support each other. Like, so you were one of those kids that like when, you know, I saw how much work you put in. I saw the passion in it. And also I was just there, you know, in my own journey. So I have to support you. Like, that's the way it is, you know. And the cool thing about hip hop, you know, the whole each one teach one mentality. Like, if you're really like about hip hop, about culture, like,
you have no choice.
You have no choice. You have to. You have to do it. I mean, I can go anywhere in the world and I have somewhere to stay. If there's a hip hop scene there, I have a place to stay.
It's a blessing.
So it's a blessing. It's a super blessing. But, you know, at the same time, I became a writer. You know,
I know that your writing is your perspective is like front and center. So I've heard you speak. I've heard some of the work that you've done. Where'd you grow up?
Oh my gosh.
Talk to me about where you grew up, because I think we have a lot of the same similarities.
My mom is from El Salvador. You know, I was born in El Salvador. I grew up a little bit there, and I came to the United States when I was 9 years old. And I moved into a little neighborhood in the East End called Magnolia, which is by Second Ward, which now everyone calls Ito, because it's so cool and hip.
That's where I'm from. I'm from Second Ward.
Segundo Barrio, you know. Magnolia was the kind of place where it was an island. You know, it was, you know, if you're not really familiar with Houston, everything is separated by railroad tracks and zip codes, and
the port is right behind you guys.
And everywhere there's rules. You know, you don't leave your neighborhood, you don't leave your comfort zone, and for me, that comfort zone became a cage. And I remember growing up and I saw the limitations all around me. And I think art was the first thing that like literally allowed me to dream, you know, to be a creative, to have an imagination. And my mom, being a single mom, I have 2 older brothers, you know, just trying to make it. You know, when you're growing up in an environment where there are no poets, there are no dreamers, there's workers, there's real laborers, right?
Yeah.
Like there's real shit happening. I remember us like, how do I daydream? Like how do I use my imagination? And my mom she's a romantic. My mom's favorite writer is Pablo Neruda. And
Mine too.
Yeah, and
Mine too.
Chilean poet. He's a cool ass dude. And,
Yeah, he is cool.
And I tell this joke in my talks, where I'm like, my mom came up with the perfect punishment for me when I was 9 years old. Every time I was bad, she would make me read Pablo Neruda poetry.
Yeah, but you have to read the sonnets out.
But then I would say,
after you get in trouble.
So then I would say, like, by the age of 10, I was the most romantic kid in the barrio.
You're.
But the thing is, like, even though I would read it and I was into it, like, I couldn't connect to him until hip hop.
Oh, interesting.
So hip hop was the first thing that allowed me to really have the confidence to write. And that was the first thing, because all of a sudden their stories were reflecting my stories.
Yeah, they resonate hard.
Right? And all of a sudden, like, I heard Gangstar and Diggable Planets, and then I heard NWA. And I was
life-changing.
Like, oh my gosh, like,
for me it was Tribe.
Well, right, like, and it was everybody, right? And it was Ghetto Boys, and it was
the Houston Cats, yeah.
And it was Outkast and Andre 3000, and just seeing the way he would just express himself, and it allowed me to just keep digging, and all of a sudden I came across just poetry.
That's just raw poetry.
Just raw, like, just poetry. Like,
who's your favorite poet?
My favorite poet ended up being Saul Williams.
I can see that.
And it's because he was the first non-apologetic poet I have ever heard.
He's raw.
And also, like, his energy, and I didn't know you can cuss in poetry. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you can put so much of yourself in poetry, which, and when I say that, people are like, how did you not know that?
Right.
When you live in the places that we live.
Correct. Yeah.
You don't know that. Mm-hmm. You don't know a lot. And so when you discover these things, they become such revolutionary acts. And so I decided, let me just write. Let me see if I can just write. And I remember giving myself permission to write. And I was 13. And I gave myself permission to write.
Is that whenever you were 13 years old, is whenever you decided to put pen to paper, say, I want to be a poet? Or were you just like writing, like casually, writing your day? Like
just writing, yeah.
Like entry, like diary, journal entries, like.
I didn't know what to call it, and I remember just writing. And at the same time, I started breaking, I started dancing. So it was a parallel journey for me.
Did it ever feel like you were going to be a rapper?
No.
Or was there a distinct,
because I wasn't hard enough to be a rapper. Like, because they were still like to me, like, I knew I would never be a rapper. I would never be a rapper. Like, I just knew it. Like,
and it didn't turn into what it is today. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's some rappers out there that are poets. In a lot
well,
of
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Kendrick has the Pulitzer.
Kendrick,
which is such a proud moment. But at the same time, like, I didn't want to be a rapper. Like, I think because I was just I was so busy rebelling against what was expected of me, I think. And I think being a rapper was one of those expectations that's where I can go
from the hood.
Yeah.
You're either gonna dope or rap.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of Latino influence on rap, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, what did we have in Houston? SPM. Who else? I'm saying the fact that I can't remember.
Honestly,
and SPM's not even the best story either. So
yeah, like there wasn't a lot of like that kind of influence, and I remember like kind of having like this big aha moment of like how I saw education, and I remember I started asking a lot of questions very young, and I remember asking my teachers like, "Yo, what books do you guys read?" And that was a big moment for me, man, because I remember one of reading House on Mango Street, and then remember reading The Alchemist. And then I had a teacher who literally said, "You know who James Baldwin is?"
Change your life, right? James Baldwin's crazy.
I don't know who James Baldwin is. And he's like, "Here you go."
That's a rough jump, though.
And he gave me the Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And I was like,
That's revolutionary.
oh snap.
Then it's a quick road after that to like Nina Simone.
Yeah.
To like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like all of those, all of his
Yeah.
peers and colleagues that were in that revolutionary era of like black excellence without you knowing it was excellence. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it just opened up a window, and now I understood hip hop a little bit more.
Yeah.
I understood the frustration. I can give vocabulary to what I was going through for the first time.
Right. A lot of what KRS was saying started making sense.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because he's like a real big pillar for that.
There's this great line that Saul Williams says, and it says, "I can't think of nothing heavier than an airplane. I can't think of no greater conglomerate of steel and metal. I can't think of nothing less likely to fly." And I remember reading that, and I was just like,
That was killing it.
how do you come up with that?
So
You know?
it's crazy that you say so. I have Shotgun to the Head at home.
Yeah.
Because you know it's such a great thing, and I every now and then I pick it up because he is both a breath of fresh air and a gut check.
Yo.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what people, you know, he'll take your breath away, but by punching your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not in like, oh my God, you're so like worldly. Did you see him as Tupac in that Broadway show?
No.
Did you catch? I didn't catch it either. I wanted to so bad, but he went on a run and he was kind of like, it was like a weird mix of, it was like this avant-garde, like he's playing Tupac but also like emblematic of Jesus, and like there's just a lot of things there. But it was a Broadway play or a musical of some sort. But yeah, it had to be a musical.
I got to open up for him, you know, which was super,
crazy.
Yeah, super.
So you
cool.
met him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely
Cool guy.
met him. Yeah, super great. I mean, he was one of those guys that lives up to who he is, you know. And
That's wonderful.
And I love how he was just fearless in his evolution, right? Like he made music, and I mean, I'm gonna do my thing, you know. Yeah. So growing up in that kind of environment, man, it's just you're limited until you just have to break free, right? Like you have to see what's out there. I wanted to see what's out there. I really did, man. And as I kept reading like Pedagogy of the Oppressed and books were the biggest thing in my life. And I made it to the museum, and that right there, man, it just opened up my eyes. I mean,
The museum in Houston?
Yeah.
The MFA? Yeah.
The Museum of Fine Arts, man.
Thursdays is free.
You know, Thursdays is free.
Yeah.
Right?
I was there on the photography section for a good portion of like my
gosh.
early 20s.
I remember they had a Basquiat exhibit there, and man, it blew my mind, man. It blew my mind.
You have I thought I saw. Oh no, you have the
Keith Haring.
Keith
Yeah.
yeah.
But what blew my mind about artists were their audacity, right? And like to me, that's what I wanted. I wanted the audacity. Like, how dare you? Like, how dare you? And in my neighborhood, like, how dare you try to be different? And I remember trying to dance, trying to be a writer, trying to read books, trying to just be this artistic person in a neighborhood where like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I remember.
We don't do that here, homie. I remember wearing a Kango, like, you know, like wearing Kangos in a neighborhood that, what the hell are you wearing, bro?
Yeah, I used to wear Pro Kids.
Yeah.
I used to wear Pro Kids.
Oh my
I used to wear
gosh.
Pro Kids in my neighborhood because when I was
Oh my
15, 16, I was just like rocking Pro Kids or whatever.
I have a line that says, "We're the broke kids who wear Pro Kids and dream of flying,"
Yeah,
and I love that.
Yeah.
But we were on some things that people just
didn't understand.
Didn't understand.
We used to call forces up because of the New York thing. We used to,
But we were okay with that, right? And like learning, like, but fashion went hand in hand. Like I remember Clark's, like Wallabies, like getting my first pair of Wallabies, getting my first pair of like Cazals, and just rocking them. And but also, you can't help but hear people's hatred,
Yeah, of course,
right?
of
You
course.
can't help but hear it.
Of course.
Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, you know, who do you think you are? You know, and sometimes it would come from family members, right? Like sometimes it comes from people that you love. You know, I remember telling my mom I was going to be a poet, and her looking at me is like, "Mijo, how are you going to pay rent?" You know, and
My mom said the same thing about B-Boy.
it kills you because you get to see, or at least I used to read about other kids being able to dream. And how come we weren't able to dream? And yeah, man, I took my inspirations, and all my inspirations, like, thank God, were non-apologetic. Like, they were just, no, this is who I am. And I'm gonna go down with this ship.
So you're in your teenage years. You're 13 years old. You found hip hop. It's giving you the voice or the courage to explore your voice. Rather, maybe that's better. Probably a better way to say it. It's giving you the courage to explore your voice. You're starting to tailor it. You're also dreaming for the first time.
Yeah.
You're longing for something new, breaking free.
Yeah.
You start to travel the world.
Yeah. I 17. First place I went to was Amsterdam.
What a place to go!
What a place to go
for your first time.
What a place
That's
to
crazy,
go,
dude.
right?
But you had already, presumably, you had traveled around the States already. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I started leaving my neighborhood. Like, people always tell me, like, so I've been to 60 countries.
Yeah.
And people always ask me, where's the hardest place you've ever, like, been to or left or
Yeah, you're like
done?
Uptown
I'm like,
Houston.
Leave my neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing I've ever
Yeah.
done.
I talked to, so her and I, sorry, me and the person backstage here, we've had a lot of these, like, conversations in passing. And I always say this, that, like, one, I have these two big points. One, I never left my neighborhood when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I was in this little microcosm, which was both a good thing and a bad thing. And you can explore that in whatever way you want. And then the second thing is that I didn't really know any white people until I was, like, late teenage years.
Yeah.
At least that I can register as, like, you're like, everything was just kind of like TV and like this because we were in this microcosm. But to your point, going to the other side of Houston was, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are you? It's a foreign land.
It's a foreign
So then
land.
to think about LA, New York, Chicago, Atlanta then became a mecca, right? Like just everywhere to go, and let alone another country, let alone Amsterdam, Italy, Florence, Milan, let alone all these places. Like who how dare you? How dare you dream of going to these places? You know what I mean? It really does feel like that.
And it still wasn't real to the people around me. It still felt like a one-off. But to me, it was like, oh, I can do this. I remember the first time going to a place like Amsterdam where people spoke multiple languages and nobody was from there. You know, I met, people that live in Amsterdam most of the time, they're not from Amsterdam. They're from somewhere else.
Got it.
But here's this place where you meet people and for the first time, they're not asking you, what do you do for a living? And it was
you're just experiencing
it was
things.
such a culture shock to me because so many people are from so many different places, and I wanted to see all those places. And you hop on a train and an hour or two later you're like in Belgium, and then you're in Paris and and so I started traveling and I started seeing it as a way of like, wow, like, this world is so beautiful. I learned two things, and I always tell people, the first thing I learned is I was scared of people. If you didn't look like me, walk like me, talk like me, dress like me, like, man, I there was a little fear factor, right? And the second thing I learned is my story was the way I would use to connect to people.
Yeah, ditto.
And that was the only thing I had was my story.
Ditto.
And I would talk to other people and they would share their stories, and there's some things that were so similar to how I grew up, and then there were some things that were just so foreign to me. But I remember just connecting with people and the power of their stories. And so it just fed the writer in me. right?
course.
The dancer got me there. The dancer, you know, who I was as a dancer got me to these places, but
It
once
fit
I
your
was
soul once you're
there,
there.
once
Yeah.
I was there, I was breaking bread with the locals, and I was going to the slums, and I was going to the places where you're not supposed to go to, and I was talking to everyone, and I remember like yo, like this is it. This is what they mean when they talk about the human experience.
For real.
It's going to some place and you just have no idea what's gonna happen.
I felt like that in New York the first time that I went, because I had romanticized the hip hop, the hip hop soul in me, and I had romanticized the Bronx. I had romanticized Rock Creek Park. I had romanticized like all these places that to me were like, to your point again, just to piggyback on that, that for me were like a real down deep, like they were what saved me.
Yeah.
Whoever was here that decided to speak and had the audacity to speak, your words got to me and you pulled me into it. And that to me was like, but then I've been to Europe now. I've been to all these places. I plan on I want to travel more. It's like a big thing in my mind. And in a lot of ways, like every time I go somewhere, I'm trying to meet with locals, trying to meet with, you know, because that human experience, then it keeps informing me of the human condition.
I tell you what, the funniest story. The first time I went to New York, same as you. You know, like, yo, we're in New York. You know, I remember going to my first jam and I won. And one of the judges was a legend in Rocksteady Crew. His name is Frosty Freeze.
Yeah,
you know,
shout
he
out to
passed
Freeze.
away. Yeah. So he came up to us and we won. We're from Texas. People know us kind of. You know, back in the day there was no footage.
Not
it
at
was
all.
like, yo, so when people saw you, they were seeing you for the first time, and it was bananas because you were literally debuting moves that they had never seen before.
Yeah.
So anyways, Frosty Freeze comes up to us. We won, you know, and he was like, yo, you guys were fire. And I was like, oh man, thank you so much. You know, so great to meet you. And then he goes, Marley, because your heart, your passion, it's amazing. And I remember asking him, I'm like, oh, you like the way I dance? He goes, oh no, you're garbage. He's like, you have no foundation. Your top rock sucks.
Yeah.
He's like, but your passion. He's like, your energy is like so great. He goes, I can't wait till you learn how to dance right. And I was like, yo, I just won, bro. Like, but he was right.
Yeah.
You know, he was right.
Yeah, those New York heads don't care, bro.
No, they don't care. They don't care.
You're like, we invented this shit. Like, I get to tell you whatever we want.
And I remember looking at Moy and I was like, that's the worst, most beautiful compliments I've ever had in my entire life.
I think, you know what's so crazy? I think Palmer told me that.
Yeah. But it's
I think I remember going up to him one time and I was like, yo, what'd you think? Like, and I probably had just won like a 7 of smoke or something at YA or something. And he goes, your 6-step needs work. You're a 6-step, bro. Like, not even like the move, the signature move or this and that, blah, blah. He just looked at me dead in the eye and he goes, your 6-step is a little bit off. I'm like, bro, the first thing I ever learned how to do, you know? But he was right.
That's it, right? Like, as an artist. So that was my first...
Back to basics.
Like, yes, that's my first taste of like, hey, like, listen, it's about the details. You just won this event. Like, you want me to celebrate you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you the things that you don't want to hear, right? And so I started piecing all those things together, by the way, as I was growing up. I like sometimes I would write it down. And as I would travel and hear people's stories and share my own stories, I got really good at sharing my story. I got really good at talking about what I did and who I was. And so when I came back home, like to be home, like to be an adult, like yo, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right? You do the college thing and you're like, oh, that's really not for me.
For real.
Because the things that I want to do are not in a pamphlet. Like,
they're not a curriculum.
It's hard. And I got published. I became an author, and I loved teaching creative writing. Like, I love creative writing, and I started teaching it, and I realized being a teacher was one of the hardest things in the world. That's the hardest
Facts.
thing in the world. It's just,
Facts.
you know, nobody's celebrating you. Nobody cares.
Actually, all they do is
know.
critique.
Yeah, and it's just it's everything but teaching, right? It's everything but like sharing your passion with students. I created a nonprofit organization that focused on creative writing
writing.
and the arts, the power of the arts, and it went great. It's still going on. It's 10 years strong. We started with 2 schools. I went into the principal's office and I said, "Hey, give me the kids that are 1 foot out the door." He goes, "Hell yeah, here you go." And I'm like, wait, not too many.
Yeah.
And
The whole school.
I basically spent an entire year with them doing creative writing and helping them find their voice and stuff like that. And everybody got better. Their grades got better. Conduct got better. They just started going to school more. And this program just evolved into this great movement. And we started creating books and raising scholarship money for these students. I was told by a mentor one time, you create things. Like, how do you know that you've created something great? You create something to where it doesn't need you.
It's self-sufficient.
It's it takes off. And that's what happened. It doesn't need you. Because if something needs you to survive, then it's not quality. And so I stepped away. And it's redefining, it's a constant redefining who I am, right? I became a speaker, and I started going around to universities and schools, basically doing motivational and academic talks. But really, it was more storytelling.
Of course.
And I remember I won my first major award, which is the John P. McGovern Award, for my work in literature. And I had to give this great talk at a university. And, you know, it was great because it came with like $10,000. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take it. Like,
without a reading degree, but like I said, without an English degree.
Yeah, without an
English degree, right? So that's a big deal because most people are going into English. They're trying to be writers, maybe.
So my whole thing is how good are you at what you do? You know, like all the people that I followed and fell in love with, you know, really were just so original at what they did.
Yeah.
That even if you try to replicate it at a university level, it's really tough.
Yeah.
It's really hard. You know, I one of the best compliments I've ever had as a writer is I had a professor tell me, I don't think you should be in my class because I'm going to change the way you write. I don't want to change the way you write. And that was such a great compliment. So as I'm accepting this award, I'm like speaking to this audience of academics about literature, and I decide to tell them the story of the Llorona.
For the first time.
For the first time. And I remember the audience being captivated. And somebody asked me, like, did you write this story? This is amazing. Did you write it? I'm like, no.
No, that's just what they used to scare
like,
the shit out of us.
Like, who wrote that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, my grandmother told me that story.
Yeah.
Does it belong to like El Salvador? I'm like, no.
No.
Mexicans think it belongs to them.
It's probably
and then
Mexicans
like,
for sure. We definitely came up with that shit.
Yeah, like, I'm like, but the reason I told you guys this is the power in our stories.
Yeah.
The power in our struggle, the beauty in it, in our struggle, in our humanity. That was it. I was all bought in. Like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a storyteller. And I wanted to be a writer in that way. I wanted to create poetry. I wanted to introduce the world to my grandmother. I wanted to introduce the world to my mother, whose hero was Frida Kahlo. I tell people all the time, like, there's 3 images in my house growing up. It was Jesus,
Virgin Mary,
the Virgin Mary,
Frida.
and Frida. I tell people all the time, I'm like, my mom had a hero, and like, my mom wasn't supposed to have heroes. My mom
Her
worked
story's
3
tragic, too,
jobs.
for you.
She just worked 3 jobs just to pay rent.
Yeah.
That was her existence,
Yeah.
you know? And for her to have that audacity to have that hero, you know, and I looked up to that, and I wanted to tell these stories. And in my book, I do a lot of poetry that is very like cultural based, immigrant based, celebrating people and celebrating the struggle, because you know, poverty is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Poverty sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, poverty sucks.
I agree.
It's straight up. It
Yeah.
sucks. You know, I grew up in a shotgun house with cinder block bricks, but at the same time, man, we played hide and go seek every day.
Yeah. Summers were lit.
Yeah, I had a bike that was made up of 20 other bikes.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the coolest thing ever.
And it went fast as
You know,
hell.
and it was fast, and it allowed me to explore
Yeah.
and jump ramps that were dangerously put together.
Yeah.
You know, but it allowed me to see the beauty in that too.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I became a writer, when I became a storyteller, I wanted to focus on that, and I realized that I wanted to find my own voice as in writing, and it was all about lines for me. It was all about lines. I wrote a poem about my mother, and this is one of the hardest poems. Every time I read it, I can't. It chokes me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, like, how does someone like sacrifice themselves?
Yeah.
How does someone come to a different place, not know the language, and know their life is gonna be hard, and still say, okay, let's do it. I'm gonna do it. You know, and the poem starts with, she left as Los Santos yell for her in Spanish tongues in the middle of promises she never meant to keep. And who the hell is she? Her name even less important than the problems which plague the poor. Her eyes brighter than the suns on immigrants' backs. She, young at heart with a scent that made sense to everyone she passed by, a beautiful crooked smile which God never fixed to show the flexibility of perfection. So this poem, I remember reading it to her, and I remember her eyes watering, and you know, it's a 3-minute poem. I wrote it with the intentions of like, I want to perform this poem, but also with the intentions of like me saying thank you without having to say thank you.
Of course.
Latinos, man, it's tough. You have to have thick skin to be a Latino.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
Like, there is no I love yous.
Yeah.
Like, every 5 seconds.
Or I'm proud of you. Or
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's like, get back to work.
It is that.
We all got to get back to work.
It is that. You know, I went up to my mom one time, and she's like, how's school today, mijo? And I was like, man, I'm having a hard time right now, mom. I'm just sad. And she's like, really, mijo? What bills do you have to pay?
Damn.
Never mind. I'm
Yeah,
like,
never
I'm not
mind.
sad.
You about to get me to pay bills. You about to have me pay bills on top of me being sad is crazy.
But it gives you that, man, it sets you up.
Yeah, for
sure. It
sure.
sets you up for life, because you develop this sick sense of humor of like...
Yeah, self-deprecating humor, yeah.
Yeah, like, but you can take it.
Your words kind of resonate with me a little bit. I have this line, so I'm a songwriter, right? Poet adjacent, probably, right? The best way to describe it in relation to what you do. And I have this line that I haven't put in a song yet, but it's just a one-liner so far, and we'll see where it goes. And it says, how will they ever know that we are beautiful if not for the cracks left in our hearts?
That's it.
And that goes back to this
That's
kind
a
of
great
like
line.
the beautiful smile, that crooked smile, just to if only to show
To show the flexibility,
of perfection.
And that's what it... Honestly, man, that's what it's about now. It's just about inspiration, searching for inspiration. You know, speaking of songwriters, man, Jeff Buckley is one of my favorite songwriters of all time.
Yeah. Lover,
you know?
you should have come over is on repeat for me sometimes, bro. That bridge section all the way. So we're gonna nerd out a little bit. That bridge section before he says, you're the tear that hangs inside my soul forever. Oh,
come on, man.
that fucks me up, bro. The first time I heard it, I rewinded it. I'm like, what just happened? And because it's not a traditional song either. It doesn't go like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It's just like long verse, you think is the chorus, and long something else, and then like a bridge, and then the chorus again. Oh, that's that line.
And that allows me to keep going, right? Like that allows me to become an artist. And so somewhere along the way, I had to learn how to balance. I got married, had kids, and started paying taxes and cutting my yard every week, and complaining about my neighbor's bushes and all that stuff. But
dad mode.
How do you keep your identity in that change? And I had to figure it out. So
did you have an identity crisis of some sort?
No, I mean it was more about like how do I provide?
Oh, okay.
Like how do I provide?
So it was
but
like
still,
a grow up moment.
Yeah, like it's a grow up moment, right? Like how do I become this father? Be a provider, be a father, but at the same time, like I don't want to give up on my art.
Wow.
And that's the grow up. That's the next grow up moment for me, right? That's the next evolution. And so I did what a lot of artists, I hope that they would do. Like I started creating. I created a theater show called My Spanglish Hip Hop Story. And dude, people started going to it. Like, I did different cities and it was a theater show, and it was basically an hour and 20-minute show, and multimedia, dance, poetry, storytelling, and it was about my life and my poetry and my book. And everything I have ever done, I have been blessed with, like, people are going to give me a chance and they're going to go check it out.
Yeah.
And I just creating these things that allowed me to keep going and be a provider, but at the same time, like, help me stay an artist. And that's the hardest part, I think, is trying to stay true to your dream, because there are some people that if they're not doing what they were meant to do, they die.
Yeah.
Like,
that's me. I'm one of them. I'm people.
I want to say, like, the fighter in me, I'm not above getting a job in a warehouse for my family, of course. I'm not above that.
Right. The survivalist in me says the same thing. Yeah.
But man, the artist in me, I don't know if I, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I can not create. Like, I have to create. I have to write. I have to, I love my work.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I love the stuff I create, and sometimes it hits only for me. Sometimes it's only for me. Like, I've done poetry where people are like, what the fuck was that about?
Right.
Like, it was just for me.
Yeah. It's not for you. You don't have to worry about it.
But to be in a space where you can give yourself that kind of creativity, that kind of leeway, that kind of permission,
freedom,
and
and like, permission to fail, fail. So I've got 3 things that I want to kind of dive tug at, because you mentioned them, and I'm gonna try my best to remember. First, you're doing all of this post for timeline's sake. This is in your 20s. This is in your in your
20s, going into my 30s. Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to, like, so I traveled through my youth.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I was gone. Like, I mean, I did. Same. I lived in LA for 2 years. Like, I went to New York, and then winter came. I was like, fuck this. I'm not staying here. Like, it's cold. Yeah. I mean, we traveled through India, like, like through, like, Latin America. I mean, like, I didn't think I was going to come back to the US. Mm-hmm. honestly, I honestly thought I wasn't supposed to live here. When I met my wife, I remember, you meet these people, you're like, oh snap, like, dang, I dig this girl, and
Yeah.
and I remember asking her like, we should leave, and she's like, no, fool, we're staying here. I'm like, you don't tell me what to do. Nah, I live in Houston.
Yeah.
Like, but love, like I'm a poet, I'm a romantic like my mom,
Yeah.
I think love is the most powerful thing. But
I
through
agree.
through my youth, I did take advantage, and I was gone. I was gone. I was gone to like where my family was worried about me. Like where it's like, dude, are you eating? Are you okay? Are you safe? And
Totally understand.
and then yeah, I would wake up in romantic, beautiful places, and I would wake up in crazy places.
Same.
But I was blessed enough to travel the majority of my life alone. I traveled alone. And that right there was the coolest part of my journey because I got to reflect. A lot of my poems came from just experiences of just traveling alone and just kind of like trying to make sense of my environment and what's around me. One of the coolest places in my life, it has been Mexico. I lived in DF for a little bit with the Chilangos. Like, no manches, man. Like, I love those guys.
Yeah, those guys are great. I want to go to Oaxaca so bad right now. Just popping.
Yeah, like, I tell you what, man, like, the Mexican culture, man, is just the most welcoming, funnest, coolest, just cool people, man.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because in breaking, they would fly me out every year. Like, I would go to Mexico 3-4 times a year. And one day I remember that they wanted me to talk, and I was like, I don't have the heart to tell you guys I'm not Mexican, like, but thank you guys for, because the whole time they thought I was Mexican, because like they show me so much love, and but they're also like so proud, to like know you and be your friend, and
Monterrey has a pretty vibrant hip hop scene. I mean,
I'm gonna be there in May. I'm gonna be there in May, and they're still flying me out. I'm still doing it 25 years later. Like, I'm still traveling, I'm still doing it, and so yeah, my youth, man, I spent it traveling. I spent it just getting all these experiences and going to like Canada and New York and Belize and Brazil, and I wanted to go, dude. I went to Shenzhen, China. I went to Hong Kong, Bangkok, Thailand. I went to the places that in my mind, like, they were so far.
it might as well be another planet.
It might as well be another planet. When I went to India and just traveling through India, man, and just seeing like humanity in that perspective and that light.
Changed you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it gave me perspective. I have as an artist, and man, I always go back to that word, artist. That word to me is so beautiful. Like, man, I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I want to be an artist. I love the arts. I can go without. I can go without. I can go without the best foods. I'm not a foodie. I can go without. I love sneakers.
Yeah.
But I can go without. I love fashion, but I can go without. I can't go without music.
Yeah.
I can't go without seeing art, being around it.
Yeah.
I can't go without writing. I can't go without it. Like, I need it. I need it in my life for like my mental health.
You're speaking to the choir right now. I often tell people that, like, if, especially coming from that dancing side, if I get asked like what was a defining moment for you in terms of like finding yourself, finding your voice, finding your way in, and I always say, well, there's a lot of different like learning styles and stuff, but like I figured out at some point that I needed to learn.
Yeah.
I needed to be in places where I was constantly moving and I needed to be invigorated in a very specific sensory way in order for me to like feel the necessary ingredients inside me to be like, okay, I can like, I'm ready to like internalize and process whatever's in front of me with like full capacity, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think everything you're saying right now, you and I, in a lot of ways, I kind of already knew this, but like you speaking on it, I'm like, oh yeah, like I've had the everything you're saying right now, I've had this conversation with people before. You know what I mean?
I think like now in this environment, that's what I think. Arts is so easy to cut.
Yeah,
you know, because they don't see it. Either we do a shitty job of explaining how powerful art is, or it's just the world doesn't want to admit that not everybody wants your dream.
I have a theory on that. I think that art is inherently anti-capitalistic. And I think in a lot of ways, people try to monetize it and this and that. It could cross-hatch itself really well in some areas. But I think in general, the theory in general, people is anti-capitalistic. And the second big point is that people think that art is what's the best way to, like a muscle, like something you're born with. They talk about talent like this also, and just in my experience, like people will look at me as an artist and they'll be like, "Oh, but you could just do this, right?" And I'm like, "No. Like, it takes time and effort to get to the places that I'm capable of getting to on a technique level, on a this level, on a that. Like, it's not your walk in the park. Just because you can't quantify it hour wise or quantify it curriculum wise, it doesn't mean that those things don't exist. So they commodify it really easily, and then they'll say things like, "Oh, you know, just cut that," because it's just like the people that just do it can just know how to do it instead of like not nurturing that metaphoric muscle there. And so I think that that's always the first to cut. And then ironically, it's what they go to whenever they don't have to work. Like most people, when they clock out, they look for art in ways that, not them being an artist, but for what alleviates their mental health, their well-being, it's art. During COVID, when everything shut down, what happened? Everybody watched art. Everybody did art. Everybody like was trying to consume things that alleviated their soul and their spirit, and they turned to artists. And it was like for me, it was like a big wake-up call. Like, we in a lot of ways, we are the front line as artists. We are the front line of the human condition. You know what I'm saying?
I have to constantly remind myself of like it's a balance. Right? Responsibility is a good reminder of a balance.
Is that your tie? Is that how I was going to tie that? My third point was going to be your fatherhood. Is that a good tether? Would you say that in a lot of ways, your art, your 20s, your traveling, you brought up your wife and how she kind of tethered you down a little bit, but like for me, it's very easy, very absent-minded. I'll live in the clouds, just constantly, right? And then to have this responsibility of like tethering me back down to earth, like is that what you would call fatherhood and marriage or
So I think it's introducing me to another life that I never thought was for me, right? And a family, especially like where you're the head of it, and kind of like, hey, we're following your lead, so you better don't fuck it up. You're the dad. You know what I mean? Like terrifying. And but also the fact that I'm with such a strong woman that sat me down. What is that line? And Jeff Buckley sat you down and cut your hair, and you know that was my wife. Like, it was just like, okay, if you're gonna be an artist, let's be a successful artist. You know, before that, I didn't use things. I didn't care about. So what do you mean? I got money. Like, I got money to do
what I want to
do. So that's success to me. But you have to redefine that when you have responsibilities. You know what I mean? Like, now it's a different kind of like, okay, what boxes do I need to check before I can go back to just doing my thing? you know, and
Did you find that constraining or liberating?
challenging.
Okay.
Challenging because I had to create these opportunities for myself, but still approach it in an artistic, you know, way that would allow me to still stay true to who I want to be. Now, there's some things that I've done that are very commercial that I'm gonna do. I've ghostwritten for commercials that, you know, like are cheesy.
Yeah.
You know, I've done cheesy things. I've done dumb things. You know, I've done things that if you ask me to do them now, I'm like, hell no. I would never do that again.
Yeah.
You know, I've taken gigs that are just for money, you know, but it allows me to be an artist, you know.
I've
And
just
that's the dance. Like that's the balance
Yeah.
part of it, right? Like, I mean, shit, Keith, Herring did Coca-Cola ads, you know what I mean? Drink a Coke and
Yeah.
smile. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
what? Like,
I
did you
have
really want to
this,
do that?
I think there's a like if you're an artist in its purest sense, you always have this tug of war that you don't want to sell out, right? And I think oftentimes when I look back on history, I've just gotten real big into. I've been reading a lot about the Renaissance, the European Renaissance, right? And I'm kind of fascinated, and it's dawned on me that a lot of the greatest painters, sculptors that we know of in the Western world, a lot of the work that we deem to be this great like work of art that's like this masterpiece, I'm not sure that they would have made if they weren't commissioned by the church. You know what I'm saying? Like if you left them to their own devices with that kind of talent and that kind of technique, I'm not sure they would have painted that. So it kind of puts into perspective for me this notion that like artists have always had this tug of war. Artists have always had the tug of war of like, what is selling out? Is there a fine line? This and that. And even if you do have to take the commission work, can I make it great?
Well, exactly. So I've done a lot of work with Red Bull, you know. They've never asked me to hold a Red Bull can up on stage and, you know, do a poem about Red Bull. You know, I wouldn't do that, you know. But they've given me the spaces and the stages to do my thing, you know, and they've compensated me for it, you know, until you get to a certain level of like Bob Dylan where you just win a Nobel Peace Prize and then he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need it. You know, like, you know, I think it's hard. It's a hard conversation and only you can answer it for yourself. And I tell young people all the time, like, yeah, if you're blessed enough to be at that level where your artistic integrity always gets questioned, then you're doing something right. Because if you have an audience to pay attention to, like, hey, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I follow you. Why'd you, like, I have people
that will ask you questions like that.
So when the election happened, I created a poem about, Latinos in MAGA. You know, I lost 1,500 followers in one day on Instagram. And it was this message after message. Dude, I can't believe, I don't appreciate you going political. I don't appreciate you judging us. And in one day, I think if you apologize, like, you know, I'm like, what do you...
What? That's crazy.
You know?
That's crazy.
And I think there's some things that, what kind of artist are you? Like, there's gonna be those moments that, like, but at the same time, like, we're living in a moment, like, what side are you on, homie? And we look to the people that inspire us to reassure us, like, where are you at?
Yeah.
Why are you so quiet? And I think more so than somebody calling me a sellout, more so than somebody testing me, I think somebody asking me, like, hey,
Where you at?
Where you at?
That's
All that
harder.
shit you were talking, like, why are you so quiet?
Yeah.
Because the name of your book is Q the Writer Cheers to the Notion of Love, Hate, God, and Revolution.
Yeah.
That revolution thing that you talk about,
Yeah, that's a big one.
that's happening right now.
Okay, so we're gonna go there. some levity before we get there, because I want to dive deep into your book, and then you brought up this is we're gonna talk. I think it's inevitable that we have to talk about politics to some degree, at least adjacently. You mentioned Bob Dylan. Now, did you see the movie?
No.
You haven't seen it yet. Do you not want to?
I love Bob Dylan.
I do too.
Like, I love Bob Dylan. There's some things that Bob Dylan has said that I'm just like, but I like Bob Dylan.
Yeah, but you don't want to see the movie.
I don't know.
It was decent. It was a decent movie.
Yeah.
It was decent. They did their best to. It wasn't like overly romanticized, but then it was also like only like 4 years. It wasn't like a full like from.
I love his catalog. I like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is one of the people that I like listen to on records.
Yeah.
Like on albums.
What's your favorite Dylan song?
Oh man, what's that? It Ain't You, Babe. I love that song.
Don't Think Twice?
Yes.
Don't Think Twice, it's alright? Don't Think Twice.
No.
That's not that one?
It Ain't You, Babe. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the name of the song. It Ain't You, Babe. Oh, see, now you're going to have to make me bring it out.
Yeah. Bring it out.
It's going to bother me. Oh my gosh.
I just did a video about Landslide.
Dude. So
it's what's her name? It's Stevie for sure. Like that's the. Although I do like Fleetwood Mac before Stevie and the other girl were in it. Because they wrote some bops before them.
Dude, okay.
And I see you got In Rainbows there, like classic, and the Queen.
This album.
The Queen, yeah.
This album really educated me. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Also, when I discovered Portishead,
okay,
that's what I'm. So
it's a little heavier there too, yeah.
As an artist, you got me digging through all this stuff. By the way,
Bob Dylan. My favorite Bob Dylan song for the record for everybody is There You Go. Lover, You Should Have Come Over is my favorite song from Buckley, but my favorite Bob Dylan song is Buckets of Rain.
Yes. Okay. Dude.
We can look up just the lyrics if you want. I can look it up. No, because I'm committed now.
You have to see this.
Yeah.
You have to see this, like how it ain't me, babe. That's the name.
It ain't me. Yeah.
It ain't me, babe. I mean, outside, like times are changing. To me, that's probably like my go-to Dylan. Like
that's
song.
In the movie.
Like. Yeah, so come gather around, children. Like that's such a great line.
Yeah.
And speaking of lines, speaking of like inspiration, Charles Dickens in A Tale of Two Cities wrote the line, "It was the best of times.
It was the worst of times." Yeah. Bars.
Listen, my existence as a writer is to write something that like. You know, when it comes to songs, when it comes to like writing such a line that like just stands out like that.
Dickens has some classics too, man.
But like,
and he wrote by the he got paid by the word. Do you know that? He got paid by the word. That's why some of the stuff. That's why some of his books, like some of them are really short, and then some of them are like really long.
What am I doing wrong?
Some of them are like really, really, really long because of the fact that he would just make like these long run-on sentences that would just like say the same thing in like very overflowing ways, and you can tell which books of his were like this is a passion project, and I like no, I'm trying to get to the point, and then which books of his were like I'm getting paid by the word, so like I'm gonna milk this as much as possible.
I do want to say that I am more of a fan of the arts than I am an artist. I am.
Explain that.
So
talk through that for a second.
I'm not trying to die like, man. Marley wrote like 100 books. I'm like, if all I write,
quality over quantity.
Yeah, like to me it's just my journey. Like just being able to have been a part of this journey, like to be able to provide with arts for my family is enough.
Blessings, yeah.
That's it. I'm a fan of dance. I'm a fan of just painting and I can go to a poetry reading and not have to read. I can be in the audience.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. So favorite poet Saul Williams?
Yeah.
Favorite b-boy? Favorite dancer?
Oh my gosh. See,
I'm gonna make it harder for you too. It can't be your crew.
That's the hardest part because that's my crew.
Yeah. Shout out to Have a Cora, by the way.
And so I do classes on, with young artists and writers and they're always asking for advice. And my best advice I tell people is like, be a fan of what you do. Like, be a fan of it.
If I had to pick a favorite b-boy, man, it's hard. It's hard. I like Kazuki Rock a lot. He's very eclectic.
Yeah. I mean, the things that is happening right now, I mean, with movement is on another
insane.
level.
But I also like, in terms of iconicism, in terms of like when I look at that silhouette, I'm like, oh, snap.
Oh, it's K-Mill for me.
Oh, for you, it's K-Mill?
Well, yeah. Because K is the epitome of intimidation. He's the epitome of swag. He's the epitome of musicality. Of just movement.
See, a lot of people would say Ken Swift for that one too, because he has that like muggy
but
face.
Man, I have this crazy story
about Ken Swift.
In New
about
York.
Kenny?
No, about K.
Oh, K-Mill.
I won an event and I'm leaving the jam and it's 1 a.m. Everyone's going their own way. In New York, like nobody drives. You're going to the subway. You're tired. You're exhausted. K shows up late. And he meets me in the parking lot. I'm getting my stuff. It's cold. And he's like, yo, what happened? And I'm like, oh, it's over. And he's like, who won? I'm like, well, I did. He's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to have to go some rounds. And he starts taking off his jacket. I'm like, what?
That's the most New York shit I've ever heard in my life.
And I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yeah, we're going to have to go some rounds. He goes, because I didn't get to break. So, like, yo, let's go some rounds. And I'm like, yo.
In the parking lot?
Yes.
So you have to just top rock the entire time?
No audience, no music. It's just me.
But that's how you know. That's how you know that those New York guys are built different. Those New York guys are a different breed of people, bro. Especially in the hip hop breaking scene, they're just a different breed of human being.
So, yeah, like, what kind of artist are you? Right? Like, what kind of, like, and that's the question that I pose to, or I try to, like, see when people do things, like, how genuine you are. How does it come off? Are you looking around for people's acceptance of what you do?
Yeah.
Or are you truly, really just deep into it? I hope I come off as a person that's just deep into it. I hope that I'm not trying to, I hope that you hired me because you know what I can bring.
The value.
Instead of, how you can bend me. Right? And like it's that Dylan thing, right? Like it's the artist that you, like Lauren, like where people just complain that she's late to her shows. But as soon as she starts getting down, you like, forgive her automatically.
Right, you're like, okay, thank you. Sorry, queen. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just haven't eaten anything.
You know what I mean? But what kind of artist are you?
Yeah, that's how I feel
like,
about.
What kind of artist are you? Like, are you really making your music? And not to shit on pop music. Like, I learned how to appreciate that through my daughter. My daughter's 12 years old, and I learned how to. Bobby, shut up and just listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And learn how to appreciate people. Like,
that's how I feel about Erykah Badu. The way you feel about Lauren is the way I feel about Erykah.
Wow.
Because she's just like,
she's dope.
She's just like an alien. She's like, she doesn't care. She'll turn you. She'll just turn you into who she needs you to be, into what you do. She'll put you on the frequency. She'll put you on a different frequency where you're just like, and it's good when it's a live album.
Yeah.
So you're not even looking at her and she'll still do it to you.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck me, dude. Like, what are we doing here? Like, how do we get into that? How do we get tethered into that world there for a second?
It's like that Unplugged album that Lauren did.
Oh, that MTV.
You know, yeah, and it's just like
Peace of Mind.
Yeah, Peace of Mind. But then you get the purists that are like, well, she's only doing like 3 chords, and she's
Fuck
like,
out of here.
and I'm
So
just
what?
like, you're missing
it. It went like this.
You're missing.
It went like, and her voice cracks whenever. Like, so what?
But also like. That's it, right? Like that's the authenticity.
Yeah.
Like, that's why people buy original art, because you can see the brushstrokes.
Yeah,
you can see.
Peace of Mind made me cry.
Oh,
The first time that I ever heard Peace of Mind, it made me. I don't think at that point I had ever seen somebody be that vulnerable, in that kind of way.
I gotta find peace. I mean, even like Kendrick's performance.
And then she'll even just say it. She'll be like, "I gotta find peace of mind," and then she'll stop and she'll be like, "I know they're not recording." And then they just keep going.
But
you know, because I think somebody had like a camera phone, this was before camera, but like had something.
Yeah.
But like, so it's just so raw. Kendrick's performance is great.
And that's a great example of like, you hired him to be Kendrick.
Yeah,
Kendrick don't know how to be no one else but Kendrick, and that's the best thing about him.
correct.
That's the best thing about him is
you,
that
you hired the guy that went on the Grammys. Dressed as an inmate with chains and shackles, and you hired him for the Super Bowl to do pop music.
Oh man,
like
he's bringing
read the room.
He's bringing Compton with him. You know, there's this Untitled song where it's like
Untitled 7 is the one I like.
Is it where it's like
it sucks that he didn't name them.
Yeah, what the natives say, a piece of land.
Yeah,
that's what the natives said. I needed a man.
Yeah.
He goes off, man. He goes in. So ultimately that's the journey for me. It's just ultimately it's like I don't know how many books I'll be published. I don't know how many stages. I've done amazing I've done a lecture at Cambridge. You know, I've done great theaters. I'm going to be at the Wortham next week.
Show up. This is out before they show up.
Yes, my posse's on Broadway, March 6th and March 7th at the Wortham. Come check it out. My brother, young Chris, created this great show. I'm the narrator in it, and it's about hip hop. And
shout out to Chris. He's great.
Yo, amazing guy, amazing. But that's what I'm saying. It's just like, how comfortable are you being in front of 20 people or 10,000 people?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's the same. I'm giving the same passion.
Yeah.
I'm not diluting my poetry because, oh man, it's only 10 people. Because it always goes back, to me, it goes back full circle of like, if you're only going to see one poet, if you're only going to see me one time, how are you going to see me? And that's it. Like, that's how I perform. That's how I present. I can't not go all out. Because I don't think, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope the heroes that I have feel that same way too. Like I hope that if Kendrick is performing in a coffee shop and there's only 7 people, I hope he just goes off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I hope so. You know, because that's the romantic aspect of the arts for me. And I try to stay there. I try to stay in the romantic side. I know I need money. I know I gotta make money. I know I gotta get gigs. I know I gotta March is coming up. How many gigs you have down on your calendar?
Yeah. I empathize with that. Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I know all that. I mean that's, but I love always creating from the starving artist perspective. I am gonna get booked on how dope I am.
Yeah.
And I gotta be dope.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I can see a lot of that coming out of the Magnolia. I gotta battle this weekend. I
treat it just the same.
It's and for me, it's the same thing too.
I treat it the same. Listen. I'm the coolest guy in the room. I have to be. Like I am coming in. I mean, like honestly, when I go on stage, whether it's a university, a high school, whether it's a theater, you're gonna notice me. I'm attacking it that way. Like humble mouths don't get fed, bro. Like, you know, like what, like, hey, are you a good writer? Hell yeah. dude, hell yeah.
Yeah. West of the Mississippi.
I'm fresh. I'm fresh as fuck. Like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yes. You know, because I can get lost in written. I love the genres of like, there's some poems that are not meant to be performed.
Mm.
And then there's some poems in here that it's all performance.
Let's talk about your book.
You know? Yeah. This book is a collection of immigrant poetry. It is a collection of my perspective on just writing to write. Art for art's sake. I have a poem in here called One Poet, and it is a dedication, is an ode to poem to another poet who said I was vulgar.
What the name of the book is
called
Show it to the camera so
Q the Writer, CUE, Q the Writer. Cheers to the notion of love, hate, God, and revolution. I love this poem. I love this book because it's honestly, as an artist, you need product. You know, as a dancer, being a dancer is the hardest thing, by the way.
Yeah, because we
are the product. You can't take us home with you.
Yeah.
And nobody's buying videos anymore. And so I was lucky enough to, at the same time I was going through my journey in dance, I was writing. I was writing the whole time. You know.
So this is a culmination of all of your years of travel plus like your deep thoughts.
It's writing. I mean, I have a poem in here about Che Guevara.
I'm gonna have you perform some of this, but like in a different format.
Okay.
So it's just, so you don't have to say it now, but you can describe it if you'd like.
Yeah. No, and I have a lot of poems about being an
Che Guevara.
Yeah.
Is that a big idol of yours?
Ish, right? Like
he was a complicated figure for sure.
It's complicated, inspirational, like history, and it's kind of, it goes along with how you're growing, right? And people all the time, I tell people all the time, and if your thought process is the same as when you were 20 in your 40s, you didn't grow.
Yeah,
Where are you growing? So there's some poems in here that are just old. There's some poems in here that are just Spanish. You know, I have a poem called Mi Selva. You know, and
that means my jungle, by the way.
Yeah, and it's a poem about the simplicity of where we come from. You know, but also the struggle of where we come from. I have a poem in here about I traveled and I went to Juarez, and I really got educated on sex traffic. You know, I have a poem in here called Brown Girl, and it's dedicated to a young girl that I met who got kidnapped and was sex trafficked for years. And she told me her story, and wow, man. You know? So it's the things that love, hate, God, and revolution are the topics. I have a story here. I was in India, and I picked up this art from there, and I remember being in a coffee shop, and I looked at across the street, and it was a little girl. She must have been like 6, 7 years old, just
selling art.
No, just begging.
Oh, begging. Sorry.
And the American in me that wants to make everything right in the world was appalled. Like, how dare you be here by yourself? Where are your parents? I demand, like, why are you here? And then also like just the artist in me seeing like, this is her existence.
This is real life. Yeah.
This is life. Mm-hmm. But also the God in this book. My mom told all of us one time that you're going to meet God a few times. You're going to meet God a few times. I met God in India, and it was that little girl.
Wow.
I have had some crazy lessons in my life, and some have been beautiful, some have been brutal.
Yeah.
Some have been, I was just starting to cry,
Are you deeply religious? or is your notion of to cue your book, like is your notion of God more so a built from the inner out kind of way?
It's definitely not religious anymore.
Got it.
And I say anymore, you know, because I try to experience it through that aspect, through church. But that was the same church that told my mom after she got beat by my father, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe
maybe it's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault. You know, and so I think the idea of God, it has to be a personal journey, a personal connection, because at the same time, like, you know, just going back to what the environment is now, I'm like, when somebody said ICE is now able to go to schools and churches.
Yeah, that killed me.
I think the best thing, you want to know if your church is godly or not? If ICE goes in there and they are allowed to take a person that you worship with, and you do nothing.
Yeah.
You want to know where you stand, you know? And it's a crazy idea.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote this book, it was me trying to come into terms with these topics that are very important to me. Love is important, man.
Yeah.
Love is important. It's a heavy word. All these words are heavy. They're heavy words.
I'm not a religious person in the slightest, but I respect religion a lot. My mom is religious. My grandmother was deeply religious. Love her to death. But I resonate a lot with I resonate a lot with this image of I met God in that little girl.
Yeah.
That to me is to hype the poet in you up. That to me is like deeply poetic, and I can resonate with that, and I can understand that a lot more than like rituals and services, and and
it, you know, at the end of the day, man, it's just like, it's your own personal journey. It really is. I mean, it's how you, how you see it. It's how you allow yourself to see it and be changed and transformed. Because I'm not saying anybody that goes to church doesn't ever feel that transformation, because that's not true. Because I really believe that there's some people that go into a Baptist church, Methodist, whatever you choose, you're a good person. You're a great person. But what happens is, I think what happens is, now it can't all be romantic.
Yeah,
because there's some real shit happening, and there's some call to action stuff that's happening right now, and there's too many. You're being too silent, homie. And to me, and this is to me, and at the end of the day, I'm irrelevant to a lot of people's lives, because, well, I don't have to. Why do I have to say anything? Because your faith says you have to say something.
Yeah, because you prescribe yourself to that already. Because you subscribe to that already.
And that's it. And it's just like, it's hard. It's hard. And I'm learning the art of shutting the fuck up.
That's hard.
That's
hard.
That's the hardest part. And, you know, I think I haven't learned that yet. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna learn it, because
well, that's why your wife is there, right?
I can't see well, it's also, I can't see injustice
and
in
not say
front of
something.
me and be comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cornel West. Speaking of to your James Baldwin thing, I have watched all of the Cornel West lectures on James Baldwin that he has online that are available. I'd watch them all if I could, right? Because Cornel West is an intellectual hero of mine, and he has this thing on this clip online where he says anybody that's well adjusted is essentially the message is anybody that's well adjusted is in his mind not a friend. Because anybody that's like, what are you getting adjusted to is what he says. You're getting adjusted to all you're telling me is that you're well adjusted to injustice. And he's like, so it already tugs at my soul, and like he goes on this big rant, and he says, and people come up to me and they say, Cornel West, why are you so harsh? He goes, I'm not harsh. It just sounds harsh because you're so well adjusted. You know what I mean?
It's the comfort.
Yeah. And it's funny because your mom told you you're going to meet God a couple times in your life. And my father told me you're going to meet the devil a couple times in your life. He never mentions God ever because he's like agnostic in some ways and like spiritual in other ways. But and I knew that growing up. Yeah. But for him to bring up this notion of like you're gonna meet the devil a couple times in your life, and he never brought up God to me ever. It's a very powerful dichotomy that I'm thinking about now between you, the way that we are kind of approach things here.
Well, it is that, right? Like, so, like, how are you? You're gonna have to pick a side.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, I've lost friends because of their political views, and people are like, "Well, we can have different politics and still be friends." I don't think so, because if you are okay with, just taking kids out of schools and deporting them and changing their existence,
it's problematic. Yeah.
I don't think we can be friends. If you're okay with splitting up families, I don't think we can be friends.
Yeah.
Because I don't, my spirit won't let me be friends with you. Because that's my and people are like, well, you're not that. You're one of the good ones. Oh,
that like, notion of the good ones pisses me off all the time too.
And I'm like, that's my story. Their story is my story. Mm-hmm. And for me to turn my back on it, because without government assistance, we wouldn't have made it.
Ditto.
Without public school, we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, my mom without WIC wouldn't have made it.
Without good neighbors, without good people, we wouldn't have made it. You ask me why I'm a good person, because I've experienced a lot of good people around me. Mm-hmm. And I think I wrote this book for my 14-year-old self. If I would have discovered this book at 14, I would have been like, yo.
Crazy.
Wow. This guy's talking about his journey here. This guy's talking about hip hop. This guy's talking about his neighborhood. This guy's talking about traveling the world. It would have changed my life. And so it goes back to we become the people that we needed. And I told you earlier, like, what is success? Like, what is success to you? Because I think once you define it for yourself, and success is not a Ferrari outside.
Yeah.
Like, and I tell people all the time, especially young kids, believe it or not, there's some people, I don't want a Ferrari. I think that's stupid. I don't need it. And once you create this like realistic thing that allows you to keep going and be fulfilled and be happy, then it allows you not to sell out all the time, or it allows you not to compromise who you are all the time. And it allows me to keep creating with the idea, with the notion that I'm not above getting a warehouse job.
Got it. You want to keep that perspective alive
in your mind. Because if it all fails, at the end of the day, if it all fails, if you're like, yo, we're not getting you gigs anymore, you're never going to be able to speak, you're donezo, like we're not buying anything from you anymore, you're not going to ever experience another paid gig, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'll be all right. My hands are calloused.
Yeah.
And if the only way I create art is to be a storyteller within my little circles and my families, I'll be all right too.
That's how civilization started.
That's it.
That's how we got here. Is our little circle, is like nomadic people in their little circle telling stories that were going to resonate for the rest of their lives.
Some of our greatest storytellers in our lives are grandparents.
Grandparents, great
people
grandparents.
Would never be on a stage anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I'm at now. Being 40 is weird. It's a weird age.
Are you 40 flat? Like, are you?
No.
Where 40,
are you? 43.
Okay, I'm 32.
So thanks for calling me out on
my
that.
My bad.
No, it's a weird age because I'm the adult in the room.
Yeah.
It's a weird age because I'm my kids ask me for the answers. It's a weird age because now my son is 16 and puppy, I don't know
What to do?
what to do after high school.
Yeah.
And me, I don't want to lie to him and be like,
You got to do this.
you got to go to college and you're going to
be.
be happy if you get that 4-year degree. That's not true.
That's not true at all. And you're proof of that.
Because there's so many different avenues and aspects. And also a big part of me doesn't want him to live here till he's 30, because he's trying to figure out his life either.
Right. Yeah. You have a total.
Right. So it's just, it's about a balance, man. And it's always trying to find that balance. It's always trying to find it. But also being a strong enough parent to be like, hey, if you need time to figure it out, I got you. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird age because being the adult in the room now is a crazy space to be because I've always been the reckless rebel.
Yeah, that's me too, dude. That's so hard. Like, I get the urge to like break out. And just like be like, nah, fuck this. I don't want. I just whatever, dude. Whatever happens. I'll get a room. I'll get a motel room, and like I'll leave all my shit there if I don't have enough luggage. Like I get into this mode that we were in. We were there in a lot of ways.
So I had a loft when I was 20.
Yeah.
In downtown before it was cool.
Yeah.
Before there was anything there.
Yeah.
Now it is okay.
Yeah.
But I had a loft there. Never had a couch.
Yeah.
And everyone that we used to go to my house, I had stools, like 3 stools, and like people had to sit on stools. They're like, why don't you just get a couch? And I'm like, where am I gonna dance?
Yeah.
Like, I would look at them like,
where am I gonna practice?
Where would I dance if I had a couch?
Where am I gonna train? You fucking idiot.
Like, that's a dumb question. Like, next
question.
But that was that was it.
Yeah, man.
And so I went from that perspective to like now of like, I got to worry about where my kids go to school. I got to worry about what's their next step. But also I got to worry about how they look at me too. So I can't be fuck the man 24/7 either.
Yeah.
Because they're asking me to go to their school and do their career day.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird
time
to be a productive
member of society.
Art. It's a Fight Club. It's a Fight Club moment. I just reread Fight Club, by the way.
Yeah. So
it's a Fight Club moment, man. It's just the things you own end up owning you moment.
Oh shit, that's a bar right there.
Like it is that. It is these moments of like, now all of a sudden I care about color scheme in my home, and now I care about hardwood floors, and like I care about these things, but I understand. But also,
I got a house in downtown and by downtown Houston. And I'm like, I don't want these people to ruin my home. Like whoever it's, I'm like, I don't want but the floor and like the paint and like, so I feel you, dude. It's not fun. It's not fun not being a rebel.
The cool thing though, that I do say, I still get inspired.
Yeah.
I still get inspired.
Are you inspired right now currently? And we can probably slowly start to close up here. Are you inspired currently with the political climate? Are you, because I know that this past November was hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me. It was hard for a lot of people that were close. How are you feeling after this thing? Are you, where's your mental headspace? And are you inspired more as an artist, outraged more as a citizen? Like talk me through what your brain process is in that kind of atmosphere.
I've had to delete so many things that I can't say what I really want to say.
Oh, you mean like you write it out and then you...
I mean, it's hard. It's killing me. And little by little, I've been doing it with poetry and really getting out what I want to say in a way that I want everyone to listen to it. Because as soon as you start shitting on people, they're going to tune you out.
Yeah.
And this is something that I
Yeah,
have
I say that to
learned.
people all the time.
And this is something that I've learned a lot, where it's just like the people that you want to get to, the people that you want to open their minds, you can't attack them.
Yeah, I say that all the time. But the instinct is
And
to
the
attack
instinct is
because
to
they're
attack-
attacking
oh.
you viscerally in some way, you know?
And what's happening right now is it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure it out. Like, what is my role in it? Because right now it's just kind of like I'm in the audience taking notes, and how am I going to approach this?
Yeah.
How am I going to approach it as a father? How am I going to approach it as a member of society? How am I going to approach it as, you know, I hate using these terms like Democrats and left-leaning progressive, but I am more left-leaning.
Of course.
I do give a shit about humanity. I do care. I would rather give universal health care to the poorest person, to the people that you think are taking advantage of the system, than to any
Rich people.
billionaire.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to have a trillionaire soon.
Probably.
Think about that.
That's kind of wild.
There's a person that's hoarding all the money. And the fact that you have poor people celebrating that, because they sold us this idea that could be you.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time.
That's not you anymore. That pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you're going to be okay. They're wrong about that.
And that's not even how
Because
they did it.
every immigrant out there is doing that every day. So
every
if that
day.
idea was true, if that idea of pull yourself by a bootstrap and
We'll
do
get you
good
there.
work and you're going to be okay,
Then the immigrants would be the rich ones.
then the immigrants will have
Everything.
They would have houses. There would
yeah.
be.
That's
There
a
is
bar, by the
no
way.
more. The immigrant experience, and I tell people all the time, like, to be an undocumented person, it is hard because you have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. And one little fuck
my
up.
son can mess up.
Yeah.
My son can crash his car, and he's gonna be all right. We have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
My son can mess up in school. My son can get into a fight, and he'll be all right. An undocumented student cannot mess up
At all.
And you know when we know this? As soon as we arrive here.
Yeah.
Because our parents immediately they put that weight on us immediately. I remind students and people and audiences all the time on, you have no idea how heavy it is to be an undocumented young person. You have no idea.
Dreams fall
The
apart.
things that you're going to therapy for. Therapy is so taboo in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, I know people that they have to give up on dreams. They have to give up on things that they're good at, things that they're amazing at. They have to give up on dreams. They have to give up on futures.
Yeah.
Because of an arbitrary thing that they can't control. And the weight of all that.
And that's the hardest part right now. Everything that's happening right now is trying to figure out how to navigate it as well. Because you just can't. It's easy to get in the space of hate. It's easy to get in the space of I'm gonna go out there and Molotov cocktails and you know the romantic aspects that we grew up with the revolution.
Yeah, so you're trying to figure out a way. The tug of war for you is the romantic versus the pragmatist. You're trying to be pragmatic about what you do. You're trying to be more utilitarian.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but at the same time, there are things that we can all do. At the same time, the least of what you can do, because everyone became allies real quick when it was Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Everybody talked about allyships, and all of a sudden, the word allies started going away. Mm-hmm. And all these allies are starting to stay quiet. It's just like, no, all injustice is injustice.
Martin Luther King right there.
You
That's what
know,
Martin Luther
it's
King
all
said.
of it. It's all of it. It's one huge ugly umbrella. Like you can't just pick what you know what I mean? Like I'm if I'm passionate about this, I'm also passionate about women's right. I have a daughter.
Yeah.
I have to be passionate about women's rights. I have a daughter
Yeah.
and I have a wife that I respect.
Right.
So you have to be effeminate. Like and it's just
It's wild.
I don't
right?
know when it became a weakness to care. I don't know when it became a weakness to like it's not a weakness to be a good human being. I think it's a beautiful thing to feel.
To feel, yeah.
I don't want to not feel. I don't want to not feel.
I have this. A lot of people ask me all the time about. We talk about politics on this channel sometimes, and we kind of get into it. And I always say I have to be really careful because, like you, I try my best to process, and I ask myself this question as a person: where is my function? I can find myself functional as an activist, or functional as a politician, or functional as a career-driven lawyer, or whatever. But like my actual function, being functional is one thing. You can be functional at a lot of things, but like what your function is internally for your soul, for your spirit, I always go back to like I'm an artist. I'm an artist first. So like I may not be. I mean, I'm going to be vocal in these space, and this is technically not art. Me being an artist, we're just having conversations, right? But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, what if I want to really, if I have something powerful to say, I'm probably going to use that venue and that medium of art in general, as opposed to a loudspeaker, or as opposed to as opposed to like me putting on a politician hat and trying to run for office or something like that. Because I've been asked before, like, hey, you're eloquent. You should go and represent you should go represent Second Ward. You should go and represent, Magnolia, the East Side. You should go and represent the voices of all those people that are getting gentrified. And I'm like, I'm not sure that I want to live. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the idea of what I have to become in order to be successful at that.
And it's yeah.
You know what I mean? I rather be an artist and try my best to be loud and rebellious while living amongst the confines of capitalism and my own personal dreams and aspirations with my things, as opposed to like having to go through what I might have to go through in order to change the DNA of who I am in order to serve others, when I can just be who I am and I might be able to serve others.
I think at this point, being a good human being is an act. It's a rebellious act.
Yeah.
Caring about people is a rebellious act, which is an insane idea. It's an insane idea of not giving a shit about your political ties before I say I love you or I help you, or like it's an insane idea. But being a good person, caring about people, I think is a rebellious act now. And yeah, it's gonna come a time. I mean, like, what side are you on? I mean, we're looking at swastikas are starting to be normalized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like,
yeah, and if you know Jewish people, like that is, I know I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I feel for them.
I just, you devalue people, you make them into these things that are not human beings. That's why it's easier to see brown kids in cages and black kids in cages,
as opposed to like the mental health crisis that is the fentanyl addiction in the Midwest, right? Like,
people. I mean, there's been a campaign for that, just to show us in these lights, because when it becomes into a huge thing, like a concentration camp, you're already desensitized to it, and you're not seeing a concentration camp. You're seeing a holding camp. Before they get deported somewhere. No, it's gonna be a concentration camp. Like, don't get it twisted. You're gonna have to choose a side, and the people that are seeing that as, oh, I'm just going against the wave, or oh, I wanted the economy to be better. Like, no, we're in the right and wrong era now. you know it's wrong.
Also, I thought you guys wanted to put your like pick yourself up from your bootstrap. Why are you looking for a handout now?
And
If for the economy, no, get back up and get to work.
well, the fact that you're going to people's jobs to
It's
pick up
crazy,
these people,
dude.
you're going to the schools, the places that people are.
Supposed to feel safe at.
But yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, that's where we're at. And as an artist, how do we combat it? But also, how do we educate? Because at the end of the day, too, like, man, I just can't spend my whole life just angry. I had to turn off. I mean,
Ooh, that's something else,
the
too.
phone is social media is crazy. And it's just like music, right? Like I have a day where I just jam Radiohead all day,
And
I
Rainbows forever.
I feel some type of way.
I'm gonna keep bringing it back to levity. Are you in Rainbows or King of Limbs person?
Oh my gosh, In Rainbows is a genius album.
It's so good, right?
It's a genius album. But he has Hail to the Thief is a great.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think
I usually hear people go from Kid A to like In Rainbows, and then they bring up King of Limbs.
I don't ever want to be the person that's like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin. Like you can't like both. I always want to be like, no, I like all of it.
I'm gonna
like
choose
all of
Zeppelin
it.
on that one, but yeah, I get you. I get what you're saying. I like The Wall. I fucks with The Wall. I just for me, like, since I've been loving you, it's just like it's about to go. Yeah.
No, but you're right. And it's just at the end of the day, when you have someone write something like, did you exchange a walk-on part in a war for a lead role in a cage?
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Or John Lennon saying a working class hero is somewhere to be, right? Like there's always room for what does he say on that on Working Class Hero? He says, did you get that spot on the hill, or what is it?
Die on the hill.
Yeah, no. Well, there's always room for that spot on the hill, so
Yeah.
long as you learn how to smile as you kill.
What the, Which is so crazy because a lot of these politicians are at an age where they went through the Woodstock era. They went
it's
through
wild,
like
right?
Led Zeppelin era. Like they're fans of these artists that are so amazing. And then you're like, how did you become an asshole like that?
Yeah.
Like, how did you become a hateful human being?
Yeah.
When you were exposed to all that, and
Yeah.
they were jamming all this
Yeah.
shit. Like, how do you go
Yeah.
from that to like, you know what I mean? Like, and this is my last story I'll share with y'all guys. My son got in a fight when he was 9 years old, and we had to go pick him up at a school. And his best friend, he fought his best friend.
Mm-hmm.
His best friend beat the shit out of him.
Damn.
We got to the school, and my son's all bloodied up. His best friend's sitting right next to him, just coloring. And I'm like, what happened, bud? And he's like, nothing. We're playing around, and we're just making fun of each other. And I'm like, okay. And then what? He's like, well, I just kept going. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what did you learn? What lesson did you learn? He's like, well, I learned not to tell him certain things. I'm like, there are people that you can talk shit to, and there are people that you can't talk shit to. And you have to learn that. But the fact that you got in your first fight and you learned that lesson, that's a great lesson. Donald Trump is the kid who never got punched in the face. He never got punched in the mouth.
Mom never told him que te calles.
And that's why he's the kid with the magnifying glass and it's on an anthill. He never got that check. And people are around him making sure that he never gets checked like that. And that's the most dangerous kind of human being.
Agreed.
And that's it. And like, when you know that that's who you're up against, man, that's a dangerous person. And I think humility, one thing that poverty teaches you is humility.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been taught that lesson a few times in my life.
Ditto. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes, in this conversation as an artist, like, it makes me humble to know the things that I create. I have different perspective of like, how would this come off? when I read this,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
when someone else reads this, how can they read it?
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, man, like humility.
Yeah.
Just,
Well, what a great way to end.
Yeah.
Do a plug for your book, man. Your camera's right there.
Yes.
Talk about where to find it. Talk about where to get it. Talk about how to
man.
find you if you have anything going
it's
on.
everywhere,
Yeah.
man. Just, you know what? I Instagram is probably my main place. Marley the Creative on Instagram, man. Hit me up. Let me know. And yeah, you can find my book everywhere. So just thank you so much. And yeah, I had a blast.
It was a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
On that note, for us, make sure you, again, like, share, subscribe, follow us everywhere. Thank you guys in advance. We hope that you guys like our conversation with Marlon here. We hope maybe we can have more. Maybe we could, have them in different forums, in different settings. If you ever have another show and you want to promote it, call me up, man. I'll show up and we'll figure out a way to do it. You always have an open invitation to get your thoughts out on this platform if you want it. So on that note, until next time, guys. See you guys. Peace.